Fight Mike here. Today we're going to be matchmaking the UFC Nashville card that took place yesterday, headlined by Derrick Lewis and Tallison Teixeira. Jumping straight into the video with the winner of the main event, we've got Derrick Lewis. I've put him up against Marcin Tybura. I feel like that this is like one of the only fights that can be made in the top 10 of the heavyweight division. It is one of the only fights as well that makes sense for Derrick Lewis, as he's fought a lot of these guys. He's 40 years old and he's been in the top 10 for a long time, so he's basically fought everyone. But a lot of people will be matchmaking him against Curtis Blaydes, but after the knee injury that Blaydes had, he's going to need a lot of time off. So I want Derrick Lewis to get in there a lot quicker. And it's not like Derrick took any damage at all, so we should be trying to get back in there pretty quickly. And everyone else in the top of the division has been matched up, or should be matched up already, apart from Tybura. They fought in 2019, where I think Derrick Lewis was able to get the KO in the first round, and now Tybura is ranked above Derrick, so it makes sense to put this fight together. Tybura is coming off a win against Mick Parkin, but it was a very unimpressive fight, so he needs a better performance before getting a guy ranked above him, before he can get the Curtis Blaydes matches or the Jailton Almeida's fights. So I think that he needs a fun fight or like a early finish. So I think that a Derrick Lewis matchup, it makes a lot of sense for him, and he would want to get that win back anyway. Moving on to the loser of the main event, though, we've got Tallison Texeira. I've matched him up with Walter Walker. Walter Walker was on the prelims of the same card. And the thing is that if Tallison Texeira was not in the top 15 of the heavyweight division, I could put him against some of the worst like heavyweights or like the unranked heavyweights to get his groove back, like a Austin Lane or a Dontel Mays or like a Hamdi Abdelwahab type heavyweight. But he's already ranked, so he can't really be put up against these lower level fighters, because they sort of need to earn their way into fighting Tallison Texeira. So because even then, like, Tallison's ranked 13, and it's not like he can fight anyone that's in the rankings as well, like even a 15 ranked or a 14 ranked Martin Budai, just because he only beat Justin Tafa to become ranked. So he needs to defend his spot against someone who's earned a shot in the rankings, and I feel like Walter Walker is the perfect opponent for this. You could put this on the October card in Brazil, put it on the main card of that, maybe like the fourth fight up, and just because Tallison Texeira got KO'd, TKO'd, he took such a small amount of damage and showed no concussion symptoms after that TKO against Derrick. He was literally standing up, not wobbling at all. He was complaining to the ref. He was throwing a clean punch as the fight was stopped. So I can't see him having concussion after that. And the thing is that the way that he got caught was more caught off balance, not caught like rocked. He didn't hit the ground stiff. As soon as he hit the floor, you could see him looking up to Derrick Lewis, and then he took some punches that weren't very clean. And I just think if you take that little amount of damage, you should try fight somewhat soon after, just to shake off the cobwebs and make sure that you're coming back in. But Walter Walker got a heel hook submission literally like a minute into the fight as well. So he should be ready to fight again very soon. And it's a win-win no matter who wins this fight, no matter the result. Whoever wins this one ends up being like a touted prospect for the future. And the thing is matchup-wise, we haven't seen Tallison Texeira deal with a wrestler or a grappler in the UFC. So it'd be interesting to see how he deals with that. And it's not like we're putting him up against a guy who's going to like ground and pound KO him or like take years off his life. The thing is that if Tallison Texeira loses to Walter Walker, it's likely by submission. So I think that it's a good fight to put on, especially since these guys are 25 and 27 years old. So let's do a prospect-on-prospect matchup between the two. I think that it would be a good thing for both of their UFC careers. Moving on to the next fight, we've got the fake winner of the co-main event, Gabriel Bonfim. I've put him up against Jake Matthews, who also fought on the card in the prelims. The thing is, before this fight, I did not believe that Bonfim was a ranked level fighter, especially before the fight. Like, I kept saying that before the fight, and now I've got that confirmed after he basically lost to Stephen Thompson. So I'd like to see him defend his spot, because he basically robbery decision Stephen Thompson. So I don't want to see him put up against like a Joaquin Buckley next fight. I don't want him to be progressing towards the belt. I think he needs to be fighting someone that deserves a shot in the rankings, just because Bonfim himself was coming off a 1 fight or a 2 fight winning streak, and he had only lost to Dalby in 2024. So I I didn't understand why he got this opportunity. I felt that Jake Matthews or Chidi Njokuani deserved the shot to get to fight Wonderboy before Bonfim. So Bonfim should defend his spot in the rankings. He looked terrible in this fight against Wonderboy. And Jake Matthews over the last few years has looked like the type of guy that deserves like a 10 to 15 ranked position in the welterweight division. He looks like a ranked level opponent, but then we'll just lose to like a Michael Morales or someone really difficult. But then we'll beat like the Philip Rose. He'll beat the Chidi Njokuani. So I think that Jake Matthews deserves a top 15 opponent, and I think that there's no better guy than Gabriel Bonfim, a guy that robbed Stephen Thompson, didn't look amazing in that fight. He's lost all of the hype because of that fight, and they're going to have the same familiarity from the fans because they fought on the same card. So I think this is a pretty good fight to make, and every single strength of Jake Matthews will pose some issues for Bonfim in this fight, so it'll be good to see him fix some of the errors and fix some of the issues that we've seen between these two fights, because Jake Matthews is the type of guy to actually put himself in those positions. So I need to see him fight against Jake just because he's also in his prime. I don't want to see a Burns versus Bonfim fight or a Jeff Neal versus Bonfim fight. This is the fight to make. Put him against Jake Matthews, a guy that deserves to be ranked in the top 15. Moving on to the real winner of the co-main event, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I've matched him up with Muslim Salikov. Now, I think that Stephen Thompson's become unranked. He will be able to have these fun matchups. In the top 15, he was just going to get smashed against like a Carlos Prates, or he was going to get demolished by a Randy Brown. So I think it makes sense to just give him these fun unk-on-unk matchups with some good stylistic fights. And if he wants to keep fighting, honestly, he should show up once or twice a year, show up against a Muslim Salikov type opponent, and I just think that this is the exact type of fights that we need to see for the rest of his career. No matter the result of Carlos Leal versus Muslim Salikov, if Muslim Salikov wins it, maybe he gets a higher ranked opponent. But if he loses, or even if he gets slept out cold, wait 10 months and then put this on the main card of a fight night. No one will complain at all. I think that this is the perfect stylistic matchup. We've got the karate versus kung fu, and it's just interesting. It's like an old 90s type matchup where it's like a strictly one style against a strictly another style. And I think that helps both of these guys as they get on along in their career, because even though they're both difficult stylistic matchups for anyone, you know what you're going to get from it, both of these guys. Like you've got a strict style of victory between these two. So I think that this would be a very good fight to put on. Moving on to the winner of the feature fight, though, I've got Steve Garcia. I've chucked him up against Josh Emmett. This would be an absolute war. You know that this would win fight of the night. And the thing is that Emmett's not as washed as he was, as Kattar was in their last fight. So I think that this would be a much better fight to put on. He didn't look terrible against Lerone Murphy early in this year. He's got better wrestling than Calvin Kattar. And honestly, I think that this fight should be placed just because Steve Garcia is the type of guy to become hyped after a few fights in the UFC. He loves to strike. He has a very interesting style. He's tough as nails. And I think that he should go the hype route to the title, sort of like Gaethje got. Don't do like the Onama matchup or the Zalal matchup. We need people who are going to hype up Steve Garcia over the next few fights. So I don't want him to be put against like the Zalal, who's going to have a stick and move game plan against Garcia. We should capitalize on his fight style and give him some people that will make some fight of the night. Sort of like Gaethje when he was coming up. They gave Gaethje Alvarez, they gave him Poirier, they gave him Cowboy, they gave him James Vick. All of these guys that were going to scrap and just have a war with him. I think Steve Garcia deserves that same treatment. He's been getting finishes. He's been having amazing fights. So he should get the Josh Emmett fight. He should get an Arnold Allen fight. He should get a Diego Lopez fight or a Gene Silva fight. These are the sort of matchups that we should give him. We should give him these absolute wars to just sort of get in the hype coming into the mainstay of the top 15. I think he's going to stay up in the top 15 for a while. So let's give him a name whilst he does that. Moving on to the next fight, the loser of the feature fight. I've matched up Calvin Kattar with Cub Swanson. Weird matchup. It sounds like a weird one, just because if I made this fight 2 years ago, you'd be telling me that I'm making Cub get slaughtered. But this is probably even war nowadays, so I would prefer both these guys hang up the gloves, but that doesn't seem to be an option, so this is the only fight I will accept. Both of these guys have gotten a lot slower on the feet. They still like to war it out. They don't like to use their grappling at all. They both just want to slip and rip and dip and move. They want to use their Mike Tyson boxing. They need to be doing their slip and rips, and the only guys that they're going to use that against is each other. So I think that this is the only fight that I'll accept from either of them. Moving on to the next fight, we've got Morgan Charrier, who had a good win over Nate Landwehr. I've matched him up with Muhammad Naimov. I want this fight in France. The main criteria for this matchmaking that I had for this was someone who was close to the top 15 and would be happy to fight in France. And Naimov, he fights out of Tajikistan, which is only 3-hour time difference from France. So I think that he would probably be happy to take this fight. I think Morgan Charrier is a bigger name than Naimov, so it would be good after his wins against Khan Ofli and Bogdan Grad for him to fight someone with a bit of a bigger name. And I think doing it in his home crowd in France would be a good idea just to sort of steal the fan base of the European audience that are watching it in France. I think that this fight could be quite interesting. It'll be good to see if Naimov can win without cheating, and I think that this would be just like a fun, stylistic matchup that you'd see a lot of skill from both guys, and it's sort of like whoever wins this has 1 or 2 more fights, and then they're ranked, so I don't mind this matchup. Moving on to the next fight for Nate Landwehr, I've matched him up against Julian Juicy J. Arosa. I don't want to see Nate fight any of these up-and-comers anymore. Seems a little bit too slow, and we got to put him against these guys that are going to have an absolute war against him, and Julian Arosa is that guy. He's allergic to having a boring fight. Every fight he has turns into an absolute war. The striking will be fun from both of them. They're both scrappy and sloppy. They like their slapping hooks. They like their straight punches. And they don't like their head movements, so we're going to see some blockheads throwing down, and that's the sort of fight that we love to see. We saw the Julian Arosa versus Melquizael Costa fight, and it was that sort of fight. It was just the blockhead war, and this is another one of those fights. They're both around the same age, so I don't think either of them are just going to get like brutalized or speed-mogged by the other. So I think that this is a pretty good fight to make. Moving on to the next one, we've got Vitor Petrino, who got a win over Austin Lane. I put him against Slick Mick Parkin. I don't think that we got to be messing around with Vitor and giving him like 3 unranked fighters. Let's throw him in the deep end. Heavyweight's shallow enough that the deep end's basically nothing. So give him Slick Mick. Slick Mick's been having some really boring fights. He lost to Marcin Tybura last time out. It was a close fight, but I think he needs to come out against someone who he can't just blob on, and he has to technically beat if he wants to have that win, and that's Vitor Petrino. And I think that Vitor will be able to make this fight fun. There's not many opponents I could see Parkin actually having an enjoyable matchup against. So Vitor is the type of fighter we could get him fighting towards the end of the year. And I think that this is the perfect matchup. I think Parkin's still ranked about 13 on this in the UFC heavyweight rankings. Moving on to the next fight, we've got the loser, the guy that lost to Vitor Petrino. We got Austin Lane. I've made the best matchup possible. I think this could be the best matchup in the UFC's history. We've got Austin Lane versus Don'Tale Mayes. This is the real Jones versus Aspinall. This is the fighter for the title of the worst UFC fighter on the roster. The most quitting UFC fighter. This is sort of the Anthony Smith belt right here. It's the only fight that can be made. The only fight that makes sense. They both got the same sort of record. They both lost to every prospect they've ever crossed path with. And they're identical in fighting styles. They've got okay wrestling, terrible chins, terrible striking. And it's sort of similar to the Tucko versus Tokos matchup where it's so bad that you're actually pretty hyped for it. Throw this on the main card of an Apex fight night, and I really want to see it. So, talking about Tucko Tokos, I've made an absolute barn burner for him. I put Tucko Tokos against Rodolfo Bellato. I know that I kind of just want Rodolfo to get cut, but now's the time to make this matchup. As if Rodolfo loses this fight and Tokos is like spoken about as starting his title run, then Rodolfo gets cut, no doubt about it. So perfect opportunity to make this fight, capitalize on the hype around Tucko Tokos and cut Bellato after this one. Moving on to the next one, we've got the guy that lost to Tucko Tokos. We never thought we would say that. Junior Tafa. I've got him against anyone in bare knuckle fighting championship. I think that more of these fighters, like the Justin Tafas, the Junior Tafas, the Tai Tuivasas, These guys just need to go to BKFC. I think that they would actually do really well over there. And you can just tell that every fight they get into, they struggle with the groundwork. You can tell that they flat out hate being on the ground. And they just seem like a duck on its back or a fish out of water as soon as you get them into grip to jiu-jitsu positions. They're fine when they're on like their knees and they're getting like mat returned. They look okay then. But it's as soon as they get stuck to the ground, they just have nothing for you. You need people in MMA that are going to mix the martial arts, not just give up as soon as their back hits the floor. And honestly, for their like personal brands, I think they would do better in their BKFC type organizations. Mike Perry, although he was kind of popular when he was in the UFC, he skyrocketed in popularity when he moved to BKFC. So I think that we should get some of these guys over there. Their earning potentials will go up. They won't just continually lose to people and look bad in the UFC because their stock just plummets when they just get out-grappled time and time again. So I think that we should get this guy to BKFC. Moving on to the next fight I've made for Chris Curtis. I've got him against Chidi Njokuani, another guy that's on the same card. I do like doing that just because we can get the same audience watching them. But you may be thinking why Chris is not getting something just outside the rankings. And my response to that was that he beat Max Griffin, who I think is the bottom barrel for all welterweights. And he even made it very close with Max Griffin. And if you're going to do anything in welterweight, you got to dominate Max Griffin. Even Michael Chiesa did that like 8 months ago. So it was a bit of an embarrassing performance for Chris Curtis. So I think that we got to see Chris against someone who's a very difficult fighter to come up against. And Chris never grapples, and we've seen it in Chidi Njokuani's last fight that is he still hasn't fixed his grappling weaknesses. So we need to see Chris up against someone who has the same strength as him. And Chidi Njokuani, even though he looked terrible on the ground against Jake Matthews, he still looks really, really fast, really clean on the feet. He's very explosive. And we see Chris Curtis as this like elite striker, but he looked really slow on the feet this fight out. His footwork looked really bad. He didn't have much variation in his combination. And I think that Chidi Njokuani would be able to show some weaknesses that Chris Curtis will have on the feet. So I think that they should make this fight next time out. Put it on like some sort of made card of the fight night. I'm pretty sure it'll be a pretty fun fight though. Moving on to the next fight, we've got a fighter for Max Griffin. I've got him against Seok-Yong KO. That he was the guy that was able to beat Oban Elliott a couple of weeks ago with some grappling in the Azerbaijan card. I think throw this on the early prelims of some fight night. Seok-Yong KO is not a very hyped fighter himself, so they're not going to match him up with like a fun grappler. So we've got to give him someone that's kind of boring. Max Griffin's that guy. And the thing is that no one's a real fan of Max Griffin. So if Seok-Yong KO could get a win in this fight, he could get some fans, get some stardom, and maybe people will start coming behind Seok-Yong KO. Moving on to the last matchup, I've got Kennedy Nzechukwu. I've matched him up with Muhammad Usman. I think we shouldn't, even though Kennedy lost in 30 seconds in his fight against Volta Walker, I don't think that we should drop him down to fighting like a Dante or Mays. He should have some good opponents to fight up against. And Muhammad Usman's one of these guys who's like the 15 to 25 ranked heavyweights. And I think that they're both somewhat close to the rankings, but need one or two more fights. So let's put them up against each other. Muhammad Usman likes to wrestle, so it would be nice to see how Kennedy deals with that. And it's not like Muhammad Usman's going to drop down for a heel hook like Volta Walker did. So there's a good chance of Kennedy and Nzechukwu's able to win this fight this time out. But that's all for the matches for the fights that I wanted to make for this video today. Let me know what you think of them in the comment section below. As always, if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.